Hello and welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the woods. I'm here to try and do a enclosed kind of pyramid 3x3 DD tarp setup. Now last week I did actually try doing the fully enclosed forester's tent with a degree of success. I've proved that I can construct it, or it's a viable option, and I'll work on it, but I just want to see what the comparable difference will be between the pyramid setup, because quite simply I'm trying to get as many options available to me for when I go and do the West Highland Way. Last year, as I've mentioned before, I did use the traditional tarp tent setup, which you'll see on most channels and most people use, and I used it very effectively. But I'm just looking to see if I can also include a fully enclosed system, as I've already said. So I'm going to just give this area a bit of a sanitize, get the worst of the twigs and sharp protruding branches out the way. Then I'm going to start building it. And as the same as the last one, this isn't a tutorial. There's plenty online. You're watching me doing it raw. You're watching me doing it for the first time. I'm experienced using a tarp, but I've kept to possibly the same 6 overall designs. So what I'm doing here is expanding my repertoire, so when I get out into the woods I have more options available to me, and it's always good to have those skills under your belt. Now the car's registering 18 to 17, so that's a really pleasant temperature. There is a very blustery wind coming in from the southwest, and yet again we have another weather system that's coming with a weather warning to it, with high winds and rain. So there's no wild camping this weekend, and I'm rushing to get this all set up. I don't think it's due to hit till tomorrow, but yeah, I'm not taking any chances. I got caught out last week, so I've just got a chair up as sort of like my base where I can put my glasses and all my knick-knacky things off the floor so I don't lose them. I'm going to strip my tarp out and my shelter building equipment, as in pegs, bungees and cordage, and then we'll crack on from there. Right, it's the same kit setup. I haven't changed it, although I did bring my poncho because I don't intend to get wet like I did last time. Right, I do have poles, DD 3x3 tarp. You would have seen this if you've watched my channel. You'll just have to trust me that it is that, because obviously this is faded through being used. That's my shelter building kit, and that's for when I have a coffee, a dog bowl in a moment. That will become obvious why I've got that. Right, what do I need in these pockets? Right, I don't think there's anything I need there at the moment. Right, first thing, let's get some of this shelter building equipment ready. And yeah, I'm going to try and keep this a little bit more organised than last time. I don't think I'll need any cordage, although with the pyramid style you can actually use cordage to pull the top up. But I'm trying to use a pole supported pyramid enclosed setup. And what's in here, that's my actual bungees, which I shouldn't need in the construction, just pegs. So I'll get these out ready to go, so I don't have to flaff about. My tent pegs are just simply, I think they're 6-inch galvanised nails. Quite simply, they were recommended for me to use in Scotland that time of the year, quite simply because the ground becomes frozen and a lot of tent pegs do buckle and bend. Having said that, you can see some of them are bent, and that's how, you know, frozen the ground was. I will be looking at getting some proper options this year and of a lighter weight. But anyway, that's by the by. Let's crack on. I've got them out. Let's get this tarp up. Right, I think I'm going to use this area here. There is a mound here. That was obviously a tree at one point in history that has actually gone over, heaved over, and it's left a rise. But yeah, let's get this set up. Find the centre. Have I got the centre? Nope. This is the centre there. Right. I think I need a slightly flatter area. If I pull it back a bit. So I've got it in a rectangle, and yet again I think I'm going to start by pegging out the sides 3, leaving the corners unpegged. I'm not going to peg it taut. I can do all the adjustments later on. There are a couple trails on the West Highland Way which have little areas just like this, so I should be able to utilise them as well when we're up there. But I also want a shelter, if I'm out in the open, that I can put together reasonably fast and be effective. So these slightly windy conditions ain't bad training, because as you can see, a tarp can easily flap about while you're putting it up. Using the centre line, and I'm just going with what I think or believe is right. So that needs to come in more. There. Will that give me enough? Right, let's guide this out. I don't think it's that one there. I've got a feeling it should be this one. So let's do away with this one. As you can see, I'm learning. Well, I have a pyramid style tarp tent that's enclosed. It's not the prettiest of setups, I must agree. The Forester setup was definitely a lot more easier to set up, I believe, even though you're using 2 poles. But it does look like it's going to be an effective all-weather, you know, tarp tent setup. So I'm going to get inside, and I suppose the test is how much room I've got in there. But I'm kind of just looking at it from the outside and thinking already the forester's tent is possibly going to be more roomy, even though I had to lie diagonally to give myself more room. So there you go, guys. When they say kind of like a pyramid tepee kind of setup you construct from it, I'm guessing it is more of a pyramid elongated triangle kind of shape there. But yeah, it's 120 centimeter or just over, well, I think it's 125 meter pole, and obviously that's rigid, so whatever I do is constructed to that particular size. It's not collapsible, but as you can see, I've got it pulled out. There's room to adjust that one a little bit more. Let's go around the tree. So you can see I need to pull that out to create that apex line there. There's a bit of blowing. I can adjust these, pull them back and pull them out. But the thing is, and I've seen this is typical of this particular build, you pull these two wedge points out to create the actual opening and the actual you know, enclosing of the tarp. You still end up with that flap. Can you see it on the inside? Rain would obviously run down there and come onto this flap, so it would be on this part of the actual design of this tarp tent rather than flowing out. So you'll have to take some consideration of losing that room. I'm guessing you could try to, you know, fudge something to keep it more out like this. But let's go inside. Right, for somebody who is complaining regularly now of actual arthritis, this could be a little bit challenging getting in. So I'm going to try and keep that side wedged and just go in through this flap like this. Right, I forgot to bring a torch, but you can evidently see that's my centre pole for like the tepee system. But there does seem to be a fair bit of room around the outsides of the pole. I'm just going to get in here and lie down. There you go. And that's the doorway flap. And that there is possibly what you'd have to stuff your berg in there, I think, to push that back out to make sure the rain continues an outside flow rather than coming in. There is a surprising amount of room actually, and I can sit up like this and work around in here with you know, ample headroom. So far as room, it's a bit like the TARDIS. It's deceptive. I would think there's more room in here than there is in the forester's tent setup. The only difficulty is you've got this ridge pole or the centre support pole in the way. I do have ample room either side, and I can lay down flat in multiple directions. Down this way, I can lie this way. Yeah, I do have multiple options in this kind of setup. But one of the best things is it gives me an option for room to work in a little bit more than the forester's one. It's just that flap. But I think if you had your Bergen, and I'll quickly show. Obviously this is a sealed unit, no wind or rain's coming in, but it could filter down there. I've obviously got a guideline still attached here which keep getting in the way. But once you're in, if you had your Bergen over like this, stuff there, it would all be going out that way. So this is definitely a viable option. So in conclusion to the build, it's a bit more of a faff than the forester's tent and my regular tarp tent setup, but it's definitely an option. Yeah, we've got there in the end. A lot of jigging and messing about with the actual, well, guidelines and the actual pegs to peg the tarp out, but it's there. Yeah, you can actually call it an enclosed tent system, despite that front bit there, because quite simply the sheet does go down to the bottom. It's just that that is an internal flap. You push it out with your bag or Bergen, yeah, you're good to go. So yeah, I'm quite pleased with this. It's taken a little bit more effort than I thought to get it up, but we're there. Now, it has been mentioned to me that tarps are, you know, a major downfall to them is because they're single skinned. You actually suffer condensation. I'm fully aware of that, and that is one of the primary disadvantages and battles that you're always battling against. While using tarps, particularly down here in Cornwall, yeah, it's an ever-present battle. And but in Scotland, ironically, the colder it got, the condensation actually froze on the inside of the material of the configuration of the tarp. So condensation was never a problem once you started getting down into the minus figures. But yeah, that is a drawback of tarps, condensation, but you live and work with that. Now, I do take a military grade bivvy bag to put my sleeping bag in, and that is my primary defence against any condensation that is coming down on me. Quite simply, I'm tucked in underneath, my sleep system stays dry, I stay dry. It's just that annoyance in the morning when you get up, and if you touch the outer skin of the tarp, you might get a little bit of dampness on you. But having said that, my bivvy bag also serves when I'm out as my emergency shelter. Should that fail, rip, or something happen to it, my bivvy bag is my last line of defence as my emergency shelter, where I can get inside it, hunker down and stay dry and out of the elements. I had to bring it off the bank down here because it was flaming out too much. By that I mean the wind was increasing the burn so much it was burning through fast. Right, stir that up. And a cake. Coffee and cake. What more could you want? Right, we're going to go for a little walk in a minute and just have a little look at my old bushcraft shelter and how it's beginning to, well, rot down into the environment. Now this particular forest that I'm in is obviously a commercial one, but you can see lying about and on the floor there's evidence that clear-cut logging did happen many years ago. You can see the remains of the stumps, and you got the new trees here. The new trees are probably 30 to 40 years old, so I'm guessing this is all guesswork on my part, an educated guess, but you can see these old rotted, well, stumps here, and they're really big. But everywhere you look, there's piles of leftover clear cut rotting. It's just about gone. You touch it and it falls apart. But everywhere you look on the floor, big piles of leftover clear cut. I'm surprised they haven't figured out a way to use a lot of this stuff for, like, well, heating and stuff like that. But as you can see, look, loads of it everywhere. And the reason I'm showing you this is so you can make a fair assessment of how my bushcraft shelter is looking now compared to what you're looking at here. Lots of little baby holly trees just starting to push through here. They are one of the first pioneer species of trees. They are really quite hardy and adapt at low light conditions and stressful growing conditions as well. As you can see, and if you think it's all wind blown, it's not. You can see it's been cut. Now this particular woodland is possibly, well, it is the closest real woodland to me, and I do use it quite a lot, and as a family we'll just come down here and while away some time. Haven't really done too much of it this summer down here because we've had other things going on, but yeah, I've spent many an hour in here, you know, just whiling away the time, doing bushcrafty kind of things and, well, wild camping things, and I've spent many a night in this particular forest as well. But we're coming up on the actual shelter now, so I'll let you have a look. Right, some of you from the real early days will remember me you know, spending some nights here by this shelter, and it was a good couple years ago, I think, if I look at the timelines. But as you can see, it was smashed down. The moss and that is sort of like pretty much taken over, and all those logs are pretty much rotted through now. So yeah, as sad as it may be to see my old or very first bushcraft shelter here in this sort of state, it's going back to nature. And interestingly, I did pick up most of the cordage when I knew it smashed over. I come down and sort of cleaned up after myself, but this is all that's left. And this cordage here is that garden cordage, which does actually biodegrade. And now if you look, it's just breaking away. And that's why I don't use power cord when I'm building, me personally, because it's got a short lifespan of just a couple years before it falls apart and it disintegrates and goes back to the environment. Paracord will stay around for years. Obviously, for safety reasons, if you're building things or doing things that you need good, solid, reliable strength, you've got to use paracord. But obviously, it's one of those items people forget about. It does need to come out of the forest with you when you're finished with it, because it will stick around for years. If you've been to a military training area but go into wood blocks, you can find paracord that's, you know, still in good usable condition and it's been there for years. And in fact, my clothesline is paracord. I think it's 3 or 4 mil paracord, and it's been up for possibly 4 to 5 years, and it's still going. So as I walk away from this area, it is kind of sad, but as we all know in life, everything comes to an end at some point. And I do have the memories from, you know, staying overnight in the forest there and doing bushcrafty things. You know, I've enjoyed it, I've used it. It was taken down for a reason, and that was it was found by people that do hunt in these woods. so obviously it was going to be smashed down. So yeah, no hard feelings, because it is what it is, and everything I've left there is biodegradable, and it came from within sort of like 20 meters of the shelter really. So nothing's been imported or even brought from another sort of like natural area. So it's all going back to nature, and I feel kind of happy about the situation. Well, as you can see, I don't feel that concerned about the leftover of my shelter when you've got this much man-made. Look at it, just a complete trail of it all the way down to where I've got the tarp tent set up. And from here, that coyote brown from the DD tarp does actually blend in quite well. But I do feel, particularly with how I wild camp and use the outdoors, multi-cam or camo will probably be a better option for me. That's probably just a personal choice, but it's pretty much a requirement for how I operate in the outdoors. But in any case, that's not looking too bad. It almost looks tent-fied anyway from here. I actually had to invest in another chair. It's slightly bigger than my old one, but it did give up in the end. It had done many years actually, but yeah, a new chair, slightly bigger, but it's a little bit more comfortable and more robust. But yeah, just to kind of like have a little bit of a chat about what's going on then. I am actually back to doing very light jogging. I haven't taken you along after that time I filmed myself and it all went wrong. I will talk about that in a future video and how I've been able to get back to being able to do a slow jog and slow run. But that's for another day on video. But I am doing that as part of my training for the West Highland Way. Next month I'll start doing weight load carrying again, and I'm building up over the next 2.5 months to just increase my fitness. I've given up trying to think that I'm going to lose any weight by this, but I've noticed that what I'm doing, my fitness levels are starting to come back, so I'm feeling quite pleased. I am looking to get out and do a full wild camp with kit back outdoors, but like I said, with the weather over the next 2 or 3 days coming in as it is, weather warnings, wind and rain, I'm not going to go and play about in that. So yeah, I hope by you coming along and seeing me doing this, by experimenting and learning new tarp setups for myself, it kind of shows you that even somebody who is, and I always use that word, reasonably proficient in the outdoors with skills, I'm still learning, quite simply because I never considered or thought about or even bothered to try other than what I already knew. So yeah, this and the Forester tent, the Pyramid tarp tent of Forester, will start to feature in some of my setups on this channel as we go through before we head out to the West Highland Way. So I'm going to finish my coffee and yeah, think about getting home. This was just to come out, do a bit of real-time training, and I think I've achieved it. This setup is a bit more of a faff to figure out and get right, but once it's up, there is merit to it, so I'm quite happy that I've kind of figured out how to do it. And I would recommend anybody who is using a tarp to learn multiple configurations. It widens your scope out in the outdoors and indeed the various environments you can find yourself in. So yeah, all that's left to be said from here in the woods is take care, stay safe, and I hope to catch you guys on the trail. Well, what's the saying? Slow and steady wins the race. And I've adopted that philosophy. See you next time.